Hi, welcome to the VMG competency-based orientation checklist video tutorial. The one that we're going to review today is the RN checklist. However, the same principles apply to the LPN and MA checklist because we're just doing an overview of how to use the checklist. So, you may be used to a red cap format, you may be coming from a paper checklist. Either way, this is a good refresher, and you'll notice that there's some upgrades to this checklist from previous checklists. So let's dive right in. Instructions. A lot of people just breeze through this and then are confused when they go to mark people off on their skills. So I just want to pause and do the highlights. Here we go. The direct observation in a clinical setting. You're going to select this choice when marking off a skill if you actually witness the orientee completing their skill. Return demonstration. What that means is if you don't encounter a skill, but it's a very important or high risk skill and it requires more than just a verbal review. So what you would do is you would get out the supplies for it, you can go over it, have some hands-on and visual simulation of the skill, and then you can mark that complete. So just use your judgment, identify what is very important skill, and then this may be appropriate if you don't actually encounter it. The other option, of course, is a verbal review. We recognize that not every single skill is going to present itself during orientation, and so we wanted to make sure and have this available in the event you don't actually see it. The other things that I want you to be aware of are the preceptor VUnit ID and the date that the skill was evaluated must be entered after each item. This is a little bit easier in this checklist than previous red cap checklists. We'll look at it when we go down to the bottom. But I just want to make sure that you all understand that this is a Joint Commission requirement and a competency team validation requirement. And what I really mean by that is it's going to look fraudulent if every single skill is checked off by the same preceptor on the exact same day. That's the equivalent of on a paper checklist just signing your name or initialing at the top and drawing a line down through all of the boxes. It's not acceptable in that format and it's not acceptable in this format. So you're going to have to go ahead and put in your VUnit ID and click the date. It doesn't take that much longer, and so please do that so that we don't get any sort of pushback from Joint Commission or any other accrediting body if they were to look at your checklist. So at the end of the survey, there's a place for the names of the VUnit ID and for all preceptors' full names at the end. Of course, you can also save and return later. Nobody's really expecting anybody to complete this in one shot, so it's really designed to serve as a guide and a feedback tool throughout the entire orientation. The next part I want to go over is this new hire information section. Most of this will be completed by the educator or leader that sets up the checklist before they even send it. It will be this VUnit ID in this section here will be used to log in to the checklist when you go back after you've saved it to return later. So that is the new hire VUnit ID, not the preceptor VUnit ID. And then this will be the email that we'll use to send it to. We like to send it to the new hire versus the preceptor because you never know if the preceptor is going to, the orientee is going to have more than one preceptor, or a preceptor is going to get sick or get pulled or whatever it is. We want the new hire to have that responsibility and ownership over this link. They're to pull it up, and the preceptor will then go into it to actually check off the skills. It's really best to do it together anyway, so it facilitates some feedback and some goal setting for the orientation. So the next piece that I want to cover is what an ambulatory core competency is. So we have redesigned this checklist to allow for ease of transfer. So if someone starts in a clinic in VHVI, for instance, and then goes through orientation, completes this checklist, and then after they're done, a couple years down the road, they decide to transfer to Vic. Well, they're going to already be able to skip this core orientation piece, and it will save a lot of time in orientation, and they'll be able to just dive right into their new specialty skills rather than go over these core skills that have been identified as things useful and needed in all ambulatory locations. So that's what the core is. You don't really, as the preceptor, need to worry about this new hire patient contact or the new hire ambulatory core competency boxes. If those have already been filled out by your educator or leader, whoever's setting up the checklist, just kind of leave it alone so that they can get the right things checked off. So then essentially you go through the checklist as you would go through any. You check which one they're going to do. Did you do an observation daily work? Did they do a simulation? Or did you do a verbal review? You're going to click that box, and this is going to populate these two BUNet ID and date evaluated boxes. You're able to just right underneath the skill sign it off. This is where it gets a little bit more user-friendly than previous checklists in REDCap, and I am hoping that everybody will understand and not skip these boxes, because you won't be able to complete it unless you did, and we really want to capture the actual date that these things were evaluated. I also want to point out that there are some links to resources within the checklist. For instance, navigates eStar to perform functions of role. Okay, well that is included a lot of things there that you as the preceptor need to go over with the orientee. You're able to just click and it will come up, it will pull up a resource for you to be able to go through all the functions that are needed in their location based on their job role. You're free to print this off and just check it off physically. As soon as you're done going over all of those things, then you're able to check this box and go ahead and sign them off here. There are many resources that we have to policies or other things, and we're going to keep this as updated as we possibly can. If you ever click on one and a policy has been updated, for instance, and it's not linking, just use that opportunity to show them how to get into Policy Tech and search those policies. Your specific clinic will have their own specialty competency statements there, along with other resources. When you come to the end of orientation and you have completed the whole of the checklist, it's now time for the preceptor to just sign off that the new hire, to the best of their knowledge, is ready to come off of orientation, the date that they ended orientation, and the last name, first name, and VUNet ID of the preceptor. In many, many cases, there will be more than one preceptor, so you can just come down right here and click yes, and then you'll see several more preceptor spaces to come up. It's important that we capture that full name and VUNet ID of the preceptor so we can identify who actually did the checking off of the skill. Also, last but not least, the new hire signature. So this is for the orientee. They just click this box, add signature, then they're able to sign this and submit it. That's one of the pieces that's required by our competency team, and it won't let you submit it until they have signed it. So that's it, and please contact your educator or leaders for more information if you have any other questions about this. Thanks.